you're upstream from David, and he wants you to shut off because he's not getting his water, he shuts you off under state law. We're trying to avoid that scenario.
An expansive definition of senior water right here.
No, I'm using a textbook black letter definition of senior water rights under federal law that tribes water rights for consumptive uses tracked back to the treaty date of July 16, 1855, and for
based on the hunting or fishing, right? Article 3.
Right. No. For on-reservation consumptive uses, that has nothing to do with the hunting and fishing. Hunting and fishing is what takes you off the reservation.
I understand.
But the priority date associated with
talking about something off the reservation, consumptive use now.
No, we're not talking about consumptive. We're talking about in-stream flow use. That's water staying in the stream, not being taken out of it and lost to the system. And those sorts of water rights under that Hellgate Treaty language have what is known as a time immemorial priority date, which just legally means that they are first, period.
And back to the question then, have you notified the people that you are hereby saying in theory could be affected by this?
That is precisely what we are doing.
Have you notified specifically the people, all the people who could be affected, all the users and all the rights?
I don't know the answer to that question. We're certainly making a good faith effort to do so, and personal notice will be provided at the water court stage when we're proposing to decree the water rights of the tribes finally, because what happens at the water court stage, like with the decree of other water courts, is that these water rights will be incorporated into a preliminary decree, and other water users who believe that they will be harmed by the compact have the opportunity to object, and then the water court needs to deal with those objections and decides either to reject the objections and uphold the compact, or grant the objections and strike down the compact. So there is a personal notice provision there, and we are at this point conducting what we believe to be consistent with how the commission has operated in the other 15 settlements that we've done, casting a very broad net to make sure that folks who may be affected are aware of what we're doing. But our underlying point is that the folks that you're talking about are not actually going to be affected in practice, which is not a reason not to contact them, because that's what we're trying to do. But when you talk about people who are going to be affected, we believe that the balance that we have struck is such that they actually will not be in practice.
You're proposing a catch-22 there. You're saying that they can be, and then you're saying they won't be, and you're saying we're not notified. The question
That's
is
not
very
all I'm
simple.
saying. That's not all I'm saying.
The question is very simple. Have you directly notified all the affected water rights users that could be affected by this compact? That's a simple question.
No, it's not.
Very simple question. Have you directly notified people?
What do you mean by notified? Have I knocked on their door? No.
So there have been no written notice?
No, that's not true. We have done these meetings. We have put notice out about these meetings. There are people who are on our water rights list who get personal notice by postcard every time we have one of these meetings. There are notices that are put on in newspapers and on radio about these meetings.
Again, no specific written notice to the affected. Is that correct?
No.
We haven't served them with process. We've served them with a notice.
Yeah. Finally, come up and talk if you want to. Let me finish, please. The final comments I have are on the composition of the board, which I understand is limited to 5. And I understand you made reference it's government basis. Many years ago, as Chris may recall, I commented on this and said that if there is to be such a unitary resource concept, if it's going to be unitary, then it needs to go all the way to the Canadian border, and every government and every agency be involved in this. Counties, conservation districts, because the water eventually comes, as we're discussing here, from the Swan or the Flathead, upstream of the Flathead Lake. And I see here only provision for 4 people plus 1 more elected between you, if I'm understanding correctly. And so it's a provision where you're giving 2 seats to the tribe, 2 seats to the state, then 1 to be picked by a process between you, to the exclusion of all the other agencies and governments, such as county governments upstream, and perhaps downstream, if it's a unitary resource. So I see it, my comment is, and this is just a comment, doesn't need a response from you, that perhaps there should be more seats allocated to more agencies that would be affected by this. And that could be the Flathead Irrigation District, it could be Flathead County, Could be other counties that would be affected by this. And then my final comment, and this may raise some hackles here. I just have a very specific question on the 2 seats that are allocated to the tribe. So if I could ask the tribe this. It's a very simple question. But I think we all know the answer.
I can't presume to know the answer, but please answer.
Well, can I join the tribe?
There are specific.
We heard the answer. Somebody wanted to answer it for you.
You have to meet the requirements to be enrolled as a tribal member. You better do it for the tribe.
Thank you. That's and those.
You possess one degree of Salish Kootenai.
I thought I understood that. Thank you. So in other words, I could not join the tribe.
Are you finished with your questions?
That's the question.
If you meet the criteria, you can.
Okay. So I would not be eligible to.
I don't know if you meet the criteria or not.
I know I don't have 1/4. That's been quoted to me.
Okay.
Well,
Then you know the answer.
okay. Well, I thought I did. I just wanted to be sure.
Are you finished with your comments?
Yeah, I am.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the folks who've come and stayed so long. And I again appreciate the questions that have been asked tonight, although many of them have been asked before. I feel that the tribal membership, folks attending tonight are reluctant to come up and make statements and ask questions. I would personally invite you to do that at this time. And I would like to say that sometimes I feel like I'm invisible in this room. You talk about me, above me, around me, and that's impolite. So please, come on.
Good evening, Rhonda. I have a question about the pre-1973 rights. Is there any number of those rights that are at, what is the number of those? I'm curious. And what I mean is persons who have a water right after 1855 or before 1973.
You want to state your name, so everybody.
Joanne Swaney.
Thank you. I believe the number of water rights that have been filed under the state-based system is around 4,000. I'm not sure if that's correct. Seth is shaking his head. So yes, the reservation wasn't opened until 1910, and so the water rights senior to the opening of the reservation are tribal rights, or were tribal rights at one time. The Allotment Act was made, and non-Indians could become successors in interest to those allottees, so they can get priority date as early as around 1908. But generally, the very early priority dates belong to the tribes, and we can't sell land, so they're generally not passed on except through allotments. So the 4,000 occurred probably between 1908 and 1973.
And that was as a result of?
It was a result of the Flathead Allotment Act and amendments thereto, and undertakings by the federal.
And just for the benefit of the audience, was the Allotment Act something that the tribal leadership and the tribal people in general advocated and asked for?
They fought against the General Dawes Act, and consequently local legislators decided we needed this special allotment act for the Flathead Indian Reservation because it was too valuable to be owned just by Indians.
Correct. Thank you. The other question I have is, and it kind of goes to why we've undertaken a very lengthy negotiation process. I'm almost 52 years old. This began when I was 18. The tribes have spent millions of dollars to negotiate. We have people in our tribe who have gotten an entire career working for us in this negotiation process. It sounds like we're very committed to negotiating, is my point. And I think, you in your capacity along that line would agree with that. In lieu of negotiation, and in thinking of these 4,000 holders of water rights, if we did not undertake a negotiation and we went through litigation, how many claims would the tribes be filing on our rights as a tribe? I'm not talking about Ruth tribal, I don't care about that, I'm talking about the tribal rights. How many of those would there be?
We've actually prepared claims in case we need to go to litigation. The estimated number we gave the state so we could get numbers for our filings was around 10,000.
Okay. I guess we could agree, unless we want to further the careers of attorneys, and we hire, I was kind of wondering why this gentleman here, who I just met for the first time, was being questioned about a conflict of interest, if he was a lawyer that worked for some tribe or did something or whatever. We employ a lot of white attorneys that have worked on our water rights, and I don't recall questioning if they had a conflict of interest because they didn't happen to be of our tribe nor of our political persuasion. But I guess the point I would like to make is, although I personally don't fully agree with some of the things that are put forth in the ordinance, I think in general it's a good concept that we try to negotiate this. Because in litigation, there's a winner and a loser. And mostly, or what was that one movie? There's just degrees of losing. There's no winning. There's just degrees of losing. It would seem to me that the tribes would defend, as I said, we've been at this 30-some years. It'll probably go on if we can't reach a compact that the legislature will approve. It'll keep going. And our tribe will never stop fighting us. We're never going to go away. We're never going to not defend and protect what is ours. What was granted to us in a treaty that has not expired, one that maybe some people wish would expire, but it won't, and it hasn't. So you can either accept that or remain in denial about what is true and what is going to happen. When I'm gone, my children will be here. When they're gone, my grandkids will be here, and hers, and his, because this is our home. It's our reservation. It will never not be here. I'm not someone who wishes non-Indians would go away. There's been some letters in the paper that I think are kind of narrow. They've assumed that some of our, maybe our responses, mostly out of frustration. It's frustrating to hear people who have not been given a full and adequate education of history. And that is too bad. Because what we are not educated about, we are probably not going to understand. And we all should admit that. But I feel that, as much as some of us want to be self-serving and say, well, it's all about me. I heard the gentleman earlier say, well, if I don't have any water. I said to my neighbor, I said, if someone wakes up and doesn't have water, I think all of us are in trouble. It's not going to be just one or two of us. The history of our people has been accommodating. That's the history everyone had better learn and remember. That's our entire history. The Salish never fought the United States. There's no documented war. There's no outright hostility. There's no get out, go away. But on the contrary, we're the ones who were made to get out and go away from our own homes. My great-grandparents, removed from the Bitterroot Valley, 121 years ago this month. There's our cultural and historical connection to the Bitterroot, as the man said. It seems like, we can't change what has happened. I don't personally blame anybody here, but I am stating the facts. This is our home, and I say our, all of us. We can choose to live together and work together, or we can keep fighting. And I'll say this, I'll never not fight for what belongs to my people. Much.
I just have a comment. Just a quick one. Thanks for your comments, Joanne. Is that your name? Yeah, appreciate them. I just wondering as I'm listening to all of this, one thing.
Name, please.
Oh, Lita Wicca. I'm a person, a non-tribal person living on the reservation. As a matter of fact, I seem to have spent most of my life doing that. I was born and raised on the Fort Pitt Indian Reservation, so I have long history with Indian people. I have a lot of friends, wonderful friends, that are tribal members. But I'm listening to this water compact that's being proposed, and one of the questions I have is, why aren't we following NEPA? I think there's a process in place that would address all of the issues that, of vagueness, of quantifying, of all the questions of whose rights, what, everything. I'm thinking that there's a legal process. We're talking about water, we're talking about people, we're talking about flows, we're talking about different governments. It's so huge that I thought it was the law that we invoked the National Environmental Protection Act when things of this magnitude come up in our state, and I guess I'm wondering why this process has been bypassed, or did it happen without us knowing? I'm not sure. That's my only question. If you could address that, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure, that's a very good question. Under the National Environmental Policy Act, the settlement of water rights claims in lieu of litigation is what's known as a categorical exclusion. So it is specifically excluded from having to go through the NEPA process, the recognition of the rights themselves. So the political approvals of this settlement, including the water court decree, do not trigger NEPA. If, however, at some point in the future, perhaps using settlement dollars that would flow, there are projects that are being done by the United States on behalf of the tribes, those specifically may be NEPA triggering projects. So individual projects to develop portions of the tribe's water rights that are being proposed to be recognized under this settlement, each of them themselves could be NEPA triggering events, but the settlement of the water rights claims themselves does not.
But they used that process for the transfer of the irrigation.
Yeah, we did. We used the NEPA process in that case because it was a federal action. It wasn't exempt under the NEPA exemption.
That wasn't, but this is.
Correct.
Oh, very interesting.
Same thing applies to the drought management plan. That also went through the NEPA process.
My name's David Passieri, and I'm also non-tribal. And I just want to say that truly this agreement becomes definitive, but it really does become definitive in favor of the United States federal government, whatever that is, finally approved by Congress, okay? And I'm just curious because there's a bigger picture going on in the world here, and you have United Nations agreements, you have maritime law, you know, the law of the sea, you know, things that are pretty complicated, and I'm just curious, this agreement is in perpetuity. Truly, is the United States in perpetuity? We have a huge amount of debts that are coming together and continuing to grow. We have countries, China, etc., that have a great deal invested in our debt obligations. It seems like this could be something that could be nicely packaged up and given over in the name of the United States as trustee to some other entity that you become not necessarily owners with, but simply still sovereign underneath. And I'm making a comment, I haven't made a question. My question, though, I do have a question. What is an honorary tribal member?
I don't know, we don't have provisions for honorary tribal members under our ordinance. Maybe other tribes do.
I see, so other tribes can come and go within this reservation and have certain membership rights, I would assume.
No, that's incorrect.
That's incorrect.
Tribal members from other tribes can come and go. When they do, they submit themselves to the jurisdiction of the laws of our tribes and the jurisdiction of our tribal courts in certain cases, but they do not have benefits of membership, such as hunting and fishing. They're considered to be citizens and have to apply for licenses, etc. They do not get per capita payments, if that's your question.
Well, that's reassuring. But I will say, folks, you might really believe that this is a good thing for the tribe. Giving and defining water rights under the federal government is what's happening here. And this is what is, and the legal construct of the reservation, which is a wonderful protection for the tribe, and it's certainly maybe not a fair and equitable outcome for the tribe and the history from where the tribe comes from. I'm not stating that whatsoever. But what continues to be developed in perpetuity is still not in control. It's a possessory control as the way I see it. But it's not true ownership. Yet what's being created is, and it's being referred to as a legal right to the tribe, but not really yet. It's more of a lawful right that's being created for the United States and a possessory right that's being then granted as a trustor, I suppose, in a trustee-trustor relationship.
Do you have a question?
No, I don't. I just have a comment. Thank you.
I would like to follow up before we have another commenter. Jay is very good at making presentations, but I want to assure you that in negotiations, the tribes were very and primarily concerned about protecting valid existing rights as well. So it wasn't just the state who bargained for that.
Thank you. I want to address the people and the ones up here. And I want to start out by going back a few hundred years, about 1491. This continent was one of the most purest continents in the world. It's beautiful. 1492 started the change. We talk about water rights. Somebody asked, what is water rights? I believe that if we went back and looked at the history of it, history of our people, my name is Pat Pierre. I'm a member of 2 tribes here. And neither one of them are Salish. I've been coming to these meetings ever since day one. And I've heard people talk about how the Indian people are stealing their rights, stealing their water rights, stealing this, stealing that. Let's go back a few years and see who started to steal what. This whole continent was stolen from the Indian people. The ones that stood up and got in the way were killed. Some of us survived we're still here. I've been here for 83 years. And I have seen a lot of changes. I've seen people stand up and say, I'm an old Indian fighter. Well, anybody can fight an old Indian. Try some of us young ones. But all through these years, I've seen the taking and the taking and the taking. Running over the Indian people. Whenever the Indian stood up for his right, the people will go to the legislature and pass a law. Let's pass a law and overcome this guy. Let's pass a law and overcome him. So they pass a law to overcome the Indian once again. And we finally learned that they were doing this thing, instead of shooting us, they were doing the legal route. So we decided we'd go that route. Let's learn about the legal stuff. Let's get some attorneys out there. Now we can fight back with your weapons of war. We don't want to do that anymore now. Ruth said she will fight. She will not fight. I will. I'll go on until I fall over dead. Because I believe whatever compact comes up out of this negotiations is never going to be perfect. It's always going to be you going to be complaining. It's not right. I don't believe it's going to be perfect. However, when we start coming to the table, every one of you were a part of it. You didn't come because you chose to stay home. 11th hour, here you are. Again, whatever comes up with these negotiations is not going to be a perfect document. I didn't even want to negotiate. None of my fellow tribal elders wanted to negotiate. Why didn't we want to negotiate? Because we thought we'd lose. And we're not going to lose. I will never ever nod my head to a compact agreement until it's my way. And why is that? Because you guys are fighting over my water. You come into the country, you polluted everything you stepped on. You got the water polluted now. You can't even swim in the lake anymore. Can't drink out of the creek anymore. When I was a kid, all the water was pure. Polluted. We're fighting over polluted water. What's the end result? What will be the end result? It's your guess as good as mine. These negotiations are going on. There'll be a session tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at the complex tribal council chambers. You're welcome to come. You're welcome to have your input. We want your input. We want to hear exactly how you feel about me and about the people here. We want to know. That we will know how to become fighters a lot more. Like I said, I'm never going to sit back and be run over anymore. I'm too old for that. I'm going to stand up and say, okay, now it's my turn. Many, many times, we sit down and we talk about different things. Let's work together. How many times have I said that right here in these meetings? Let's work together. Let's get this thing over. Let's do something with it. But no, you're going to get up and you're going to have your concerns. You'll always have concerns. Whenever this is completed, and you look at that document, you're gonna say no. You're gonna say no. All of you that stood up here are gonna say no. That's not the way I want to see it. That's too bad, huh? We tried. It didn't work. But I'm going to say once again, I will never nod my head to an agreement until it's done my way. My way. That's the Indian way. Because we're on Indian land. We're a sovereign nation, supposedly, because this reservation never been shown in the state of Montana. It never became part of the territory when Montana was a territory back in 1863. The President of the United States said, talk to the tribes. Any one of the tribes want to become a part of the territory, let them come to D.C. and they can become a part of the territory. We never did. And when the state of Montana became a state, the same thing went out. If they want to become a part of the state of Montana, let them come here and request it. We never did. So here we're sitting with the state of Montana negotiating over my water. You don't like that, do you?
Oh, I love you.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
I certainly do.
Good. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to come to these meetings and stand up here and rave and rant about different things, some things that are not important, because we're concerned? Well, I'm concerned. But I'm going to come and listen and let you know I'm concerned. Tomorrow we're going to be sitting at the table again, down the road a ways. And we're going to be talking some more, but it's not going to be completed tomorrow. And as long as you keep coming and standing up here and raving and ranting, we're probably going to go another 10 years. How many years have we been going, Chris? How many years have we
Early
been?
1980s, I can't.
10 years?
Early 1980s.
A long time, huh? And as long as we're complaining, it'll keep going. Because they're going to try to satisfy you guys. I don't have to. I just say, no, we're not going to do this no more. And the reason we're doing this, the reason the tribes are sitting at the table, is we need to. Because if we don't sit at the table, the federal government will sit at the table for us. They'll do it for us. Not only that, but they'll do it to us. You see that? That's why we're sitting up here. Right. Now we'll define this a little bit finer tomorrow. And we'll bring a map to show you why we're sitting at this table. You come to the negotiation meeting, that panel at the complex, and I will explain to you why we're sitting at this table. I will show you why we're there. And I want to say I want to appreciate every one of you's concerned. I know you're all concerned. You think these guys are doing something wrong? Maybe they are. Maybe they are. But I'm not. I'm going to stand up for Pat Pierre and all his people. I was chosen by my tribe to be their spokesperson. That's why I've been here at every meeting. We'd go to Helena, Missoula, we'd to a lot of places. Negotiation. Negotiation's a losing thing. Your side and my side. We all lose. Because we compromise. I don't like compromise. But we do it every time we sit down here. So I want to say thank every one of you for your concerns, your voice. We want to hear from you, but we want to hear facts. We want to hear, let down the other stuff, so we can have something to work with. I hope that I'm understood here tonight, and I'm going to be here the next session. Anyone after that, I'm going to be here until this is complete. Because I want to protect my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I want them to have something to live for. And that's what I'm doing standing here. I'm making a path for them. And I hope that I make a good path. And I hope that you guys can help me. Understood? Is that understood? Is that understood?
Amen.
Good. I like an amen. We go to church pretty quickly. So I would say thank you. And I got a ways to travel, so I'm going to exit out of here. Thank you. I would say thank you for the comments.
Thank you. Me too.
Rhonda, I just have a real quick question for you. I'm looking at a piece of property that's 10 acres. It has secretarial water rights going through it. It's in tribal trust, currently for sale. So I don't know if those water rights have been, registered because it's held in tribal trust, owned by a tribal member. So if me, a non-tribal member, buys the property, how is that secretarial water right then passed on to me?
I really can't answer that question without knowing the whole history of transactions on that piece of property. It could have gone in and out and back into trust. In that case, I can't give you an answer.
I see, so it differs. It differs if it were originally a homesteaded property, eventually got its way into tribal, or if it were originally a lottee property.
It does.
Okay, it differs, okay. Thank you.
My name is Frank Tyra, and I have a question for Rhonda. I carry this copy of the treaty around with me, and I have a Sioux copy, by the way. And I'm just wondering when the treaty is going to be enforced, particularly in Article 2, where it says, "Nor shall any white man, excepting those in the employment of the Indian Department, be permitted to reside upon the reservation without permission of the Confederated Tribes and others."
Thank you for asking that question. I would predict we've passed the day when that treaty provision will be enforced. And the reason why, and that is the reason why we're negotiating as well, is Congress has plenary power over Indians and Indian affairs. They can pass laws that subject us to changes to the treaty, changes that we're basically unable to fight. We are subject to the laws, the laws of the federal government. Our Constitution says we must abide by those laws, and we do. So when Congress adopted the Flathead Allotment Act in 1904 and amended it many times throughout history, opening the reservation, allowing non-Indians to come on, they've changed the treaty. There's a fundamental change that we have to abide by. So, in answer to your question, if Congress goes the other way and says, we're gonna recognize this treaty again, all these folks have to abide by all these provisions, that will be the day. Will it happen? Not in my life.
I have a question. John Swenson, Ronan, for the federal government. Is Montana a federal territory?
I believe it's was admitted as a state.
1889.
Okay, it's not a federal territory. Is the land within the exterior bounds of the reservation a federal territory?
It might have been at one time treated like a federal territory, but it isn't anymore.
It is, however, as a matter of federal law, Indian country.
It has certainly different rules that would apply to it, depending on the land status.
So are you using territory with a capital T or a small t? I'm serious.
Yeah, I know you're serious. I'm serious too. Not being a lawyer and not being a grammatician, I'm not sure.
Well, federal territory is like Puerto Rico or Samoa. It's a distinctly defined political entity within the United States of America.
The United States of America or the United States government?
I don't recognize the distinction.
Okay, okay.
Territory with a small t means isn't land within the sovereign jurisdiction of the United States. And small t territory, I would answer your question, yes. Large t I would answer no.
Large T being what you categorize as Guam, Samoa, American Samoa, and Puerto Rico. Large T.
It's very clear about it. That an Indian reservation is not a state, it's not a territory, it's not a county.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get an answer, that's all. You know, it may be a redundant question and seems stupid, but is this a public hearing?
No, I didn't.
This is not a public hearing?
I didn't say it was stupid at all.
Okay, is this a public hearing?
It's not a hearing, it's a meeting.
Is it a legal proceeding?
No, it's a meeting.
It's a public meeting, duly noticed, being recorded.
Okay, as part of the process of its legal procedure.
Yeah,
Okay, it's required by law that you have this meeting?
No.
Okay,
No, we can take a compact to the legislature without having a single public meeting if we chose to do it.
okay.
We've never done that, but we could do
Okay,
that.
well, I'm trying to understand the nature of this proceeding, and I don't. And, I realize that my questions may seem stupid to you, they may not, they may seem stupid to other people, but I find it very important to me in understanding what's going on, because...
Let me respond to that. I don't think your questions are stupid.
Okay,
But
okay.
I think,
I'll take that for face value, that you don't feel they are. I appreciate that.
this stuff, if anything, has been evident from all of the meetings.
Well,
This is complicated stuff.
this is a legal matter.
The questions that are being asked for a purpose, and they use terminology that may have legal significance or not. And frankly, I don't know. So I have to.
Okay, well, when I ask a question like, what is the definition of individual, and people find it funny or offensive, when I'm dealing with a room full of attorneys who have taken an oath to the bar, and they understand the terminology being used, and I don't, I want to understand it because it's my land that's at stake, not yours. I want to know what is your stake in this game. Do you have an oath to office, Jay? Have you taken an oath? Okay, Chris, have you taken an oath of any sort?
I'm taking an oath as an officer of the court.
Okay, so you are an officer of the court. Will you put your signature on this document?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your seal. Your signature is your seal. It's the only seal you have, and you're the only one who can create it. It's your seal. My signature is my seal. And when I put my signature on something, I, me, the flesh and blood man, not the legal fiction created for me by the government, is the one responsible for my actions. When I leave this room, if I hurt somebody, there's no insurance on the face of this earth that will protect me from going to jail through a court of my peers, because they'll hold me, the man who signed the document or drove the car, personally liable. That's important to me, and it means something. So your seal means something. If you're signing one of these documents, I want to know about it, and I want to know what your oath is. So I'm sorry that that's the way I have to approach it, but when I get that kind of response from you people, that's the way I have to act.
All right, I can explain to you that when I sign the document, I'm signing in my official capacity as a member of the Reserve Water Rights Compact.
So your signature is not you as the man? Yes, it's something else.
I don't know what the difference is. You use
Okay.
terminology,
Okay.
concepts that I don't understand, that are not taught in law schools in this country.
Okay, well, I can accept
Law
that.
school I went to.
I can accept that they don't teach that. I do accept
And I
that.
haven't gone to the internet to research these things, or gone to books to research in the way you have, so.
Okay.
I don't understand what you're talking about. I'm not
Okay.
saying that I ridicule
Well,
it or that I hold it at no value.
You're going to explain to you then what I'm talking about, since you opened the door for me to do that. What I'm talking about is that when I was born a flesh and blood man on this earth with inherent rights. I was given a